Good afternoon, everyone. This is the last scheduled webinar on the GP to BC conversions. It's our audience, as you've probably attended other ones, is for people that are using Dynamics GP and are interested in moving to Dynamics Business Central. And we wanted to talk about, in this webinar, the BC customization tools, and in particular, focus a little bit on folks that are using Dynamics GP with Extender from E1 Solutions and how that could appear in Business Central, as well as some of the other customization tools that are there. So Dynamics GP can have both windows and reports that are customized. We've always been able to customize those using Dexterity or other modifier type things for reports and windows. They tend to use some Visual Basic sometimes, which causes problems. But one of the things that's great is E1 Solutions provides an add-on called Extender. And this is a GP user configurable solution. Extender provides locations to store additional card information for customers, vendors, inventory items, and even on other cards for fixed assets or GL accounts. An example might be that you've got some vendors that have some specific information they need to have, and there's not a place on the Dynamics GP vendor card to place that. There's no location for it. There's two user-defined fields that are available, but those are limited in length and they may be used for something else. So Extender lets you set up windows that can be linked to a customer card, a vendor card, inventory item card, or other cards such as a GL account. And it has typically 15 fields on it, and you're able to have it linked up, and it can be done by GP users. There's no VBA, no security problems dealing with it. They can be linked so that they open manually by like a Control F or something. You can use various commands to open those windows, or you could have it linked. So when you tab off of, say, the last field on a vendor card or customer card, it could just automatically open that Extender window and take you in. You can also have some restricted fields on that say you must pick from this list, a drop-down list of choices. It could be free text fields. It could be a required field that a user has to make a selection in order to get off the Extender window. Extender data is available to appear in smart lists and on report writer reports. Those, to have it appear in smart lists is pretty much, GP user could do that if they have the appropriate knowledge. Report writer, you oftentimes have to go back to the TM group to get that data on the reports for you. But again, it's still able to be done. Not a lot of fuss and muss to do it. It's a great solution. Extender has not been a good choice for adding additional information to transaction records, like a journal entry or a sales transaction. You can attach windows to that and put additional information. But for example, journal entries, if you're trying to put some information on that helps let users of the financials know where something is to go, well, in Dynamics BC, we're able to use dimensions, and we covered that back in Chart of Accounts for Dynamics Business Central. But it doesn't do that well in GP or for sales or purchase transactions. It can really slow down performance when you're importing data that goes into the Extender fields. So we don't recommend that. We tend to stick more with the cards as opposed to transaction windows. Extender uses additional windows. You can't see the Extender data on a GP window unless a TM group developer goes in and modifies that window significantly. So users always have to go to an additional location to get that extra information. When you're upgrading GP versions, the Extender windows must be tested to ensure that the upgrade version functions the same. I've never had it not function, but we always have to test it because one time a while ago, some TM group clients did have some problems when upgrades occurred. just not in my tenure of 15 years plus. It's not been a problem, but we always have to check it. And then if you use locally installed desktop versions of GP, Extender requires a visited upgrade time just as you have to with the other. In other words, you can't do it unless you're using a terminal server where you could upgrade one location. If not, you have to go visit all the desktop versions of that. While Extender is a great product and I really like it, it works in 95% of the situations where it's needed. We have to make sure that we have something available going into Dynamics BC to archive that data, to make it available to us again. We don't want to lose out on that functionality and, more importantly, the history of all that data that's out there. And so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and turn this over to Marcel Chabot, who's one of the TM Group's developers that works with Business Central customizations. Marcel?
Thank you, Roger. So when we're moving into Business Central, we enter a different world of customization. There are packages out there that offer an extender-like user configurable field system, and they all have similar challenges and drawbacks to the original extender. And another option, though, is to take those extender fields and make them a part of the Business Central application as a whole, and gain some serious benefit to how Business Central handles that data. In Business Central, we have tables like any other database system, and we're able to create new tables or take an existing table and extend the fields on that table. For example, if we have a customer, we have the customer table, we can go in and say, hey, I just want to add 5 fields to the customer and extend the customer table with those 5 extra fields. And everything and anything that talks using that customer table will inherit those additional fields. We could decide that we want a different table completely and just create a whole new table and extend the data system with that table. When we're talking about the user interface, in GP we called them cards. In Business Central we call them pages. And we can do the same thing. We can create all new pages and express new information or old information in new ways. I can create a new page that talks to an existing table. If we don't like the way the customer page looks, I can create a new customer page off the customer table and table extensions. Or I can take the existing page and add new fields or existing fields, not all of the fields on the customer table or on the customer page. Well, we can bring those into the page anytime we want, or add new fields from extensions or new related tables to the pages. We also have queries, which gives us a nice way to find data quickly. And we have code units, which lets us do work to call functions and call methods and add buttons, as well as all the other BC components that are new from a GP standpoint that you would find as a Business Central user. Things like fact boxes and all those other data compartments that we can add on to and make visible. So moving from an extender model over to really just extending Business Central. And it goes further than just that. Any page change is also a change to the web service within Business Central. Any page can be a web service. If we had a new ERP component or needed to express certain data outside the system for an integration or a web page or other systems that come in and consume data out of Business Central, our page extensions and new pages are also web service and web service extensions. We can also make special web services that don't have pages. They're just pages that you can't see on the screen. But we can create extra web services And a query can be a web service, for example, a quantity on hand, an inventory query that we want to expose outside. That's an extension to the query system that we can build into Business Central. It really takes the tools that you had and the abilities that were a part of an extender system and lets us make it a part of core Business Central, and to really customize how your environment works in ways that aren't options in the Great Plains model. It does come with a bit of a cost to it, in that applying that level of extension requires development users. And that's where your partner comes in. We use a software studio called Visual Studio Code, and they're all written in a language called AL. And in order to build these customizations for you, we write them in AL and we test them on a technology called Docker. It allows us to create a local instance of your Business Central system and even go forward into the next releases of Business Central. As a partner, we can actually see into the future a little bit and build your customizations and test them against what's coming next in Business Central. Microsoft, to keep us all in line and doing best practices and developing these extensions the way they want, they provide something called the code cops. And the code cops run through our code constantly while making these adjustments to tell us if there's anything that is not up to Microsoft standards. And that includes right down to variable naming. Microsoft is very strict on how we extend an end user environment, especially in the cloud, and enforces rules so that we are always following best practices and are alerted to those changes on an update that comes every Tuesday. They also provide through Docker automatic testing routines so we can validate both now and future versions. Then once we go to the cloud, you have a sandbox where we can deploy these customizations and review them and make sure that they meet your requirements, and then off to production. Microsoft also provides a series of tools called Application Insights. And Business Central can connect to an Application Insights instance and will report on the functionality of all of its system, core functions, as well as any ISV provided extensions. It monitors the form and function of the environment for anything that is running slow, anything that is causing errors, negative interactions. It actually reports on end user screen load times and regional performance challenges in case there's an issue in the Azure clusters. It'll actually show us that certain regions are running slower than others. And this can really help with that move from a GP on-premise type feel where you can look and see the servers. You can use this to get that feel for how is my system performing while still in the cloud. With those application insights, that's a lot of data. TM Group has dashboards that hooks into that cloud information so that your customizations and your system as a whole, we can actually see that. We can identify underperformance, and we can get feedback on end user experiences through a series of dashboards that are available through TMG Cloud SaaS Insights. And these are available to anybody through the Microsoft App Center. What are some of the benefits of going from an extender type model to a Business Central customization model? Well, one of the main things is that we're using in these extensions the same technology that Microsoft uses to create Business Central. Business Central has a core application that actually does nothing. And on top of that is an extension, 3 of them actually, that build up a financials package. Well, our extensions are no different than Microsoft's extensions. We just add a fourth and a fifth to the base and the system and the core extensions that already exist. This puts us on parity with form and function that Microsoft has. We're not a second-class bolt-on to the core Business Central software. We get the same access, the same speed and performance capabilities, the same logic controls that Microsoft has on their own. This is important because all of these customizations must survive 2 major updates a year. Business Central gets a 0.5 or a half. In this case, we're up to 19.6 today, and a full, which will be 20 when it comes out for at this date and time. And then there'll be another half, which will be a 20 point, and then another full, which will be 21. At twice a year, always a half and a full. These need to go smoothly every time. And by having the code cops being parity with Microsoft's own customizations, with the advanced warning system that Microsoft implements to let us know about test upgrades, with sandboxes upgrading well before production instances, we're able to maintain this twice a year update with minimal overhead until Microsoft takes a feature away, in which case we have months to years of notification of any feature deprecations, that we're able to keep all these customizations up to date with Microsoft automatically. And this gives you that highly available, highly integrated environment built right in, and with your customizations and your data always available to you. This is a major change to how the world works and feels in GP, where it is very static and all add-ons are bolt-ons above and beyond and don't really have functional parity with GP core, where we experience slowdowns and data inaccessibility and other challenges. Those aren't here with this model, which makes Business Central a very exciting place to be for your customized and advanced data needs. And with that, I will give the floor back to Roger.
So does anyone have any questions on this? Kind of laid out how, how to get from GP to BC with your extra data that you use in Extender. And actually there's even more, because there were things that you can do in Business Central that we could not quite do even with Extender in Dynamics GP.
Doesn't look like we have any questions currently, but we can give people a second to type something up if they have any.
The moving of data is really interesting in this, because since we can, if you used Extender in GP to extend the customer record, and then we create those same data fields and controls in Business Central, when we import the rest of the customer data, we just need to export and include that Extender data into the import into Business Central. And that moves the data over. Typically, we'll need to do 2 exports, one for the core data of customer and one for the Extender data of customer. But it just goes into customer now and doesn't require those duplicate systems once the migration happens. It all becomes uniform as customer because we extended the customer table to include that data. It keeps it very clean and uniform. Reporting afterwards now is reporting off of the single customer table because your extension has been merged into it. And it's really interesting after that migration how it goes from data and a bolt-on to just my data, even though it is my data extended.
Great, thanks Marcel. So thank you all for joining today, and thank you Roger and Marcel for presenting today. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.